Hello, this is Weekend Handicapper from weekendhandicapper.com. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss Preakness tips and strategies, how you can be a winner of the Preakness Stakes. We're going to discuss common themes of the Preakness, what types of horses you should be looking for, what kind of running style is usually victorious by certain horses that you want to be on the lookout for, and of course, tips and strategies for betting on the Preakness. So if you're new to horse racing, if you're not familiar with the term or the event known as the Preakness Stakes, it is the second leg of the Triple Crown. So if you're somebody that, like a good number of the majority of the general public, only pays attention to horse racing in the spring, around the Kentucky Derby time, it's the second leg of the Triple Crown. So the Triple Crown is the Kentucky Derby, followed by the Preakness 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. And then the final leg is the Belmont Stakes in New York. So if a horse can win all three of those Triple Crown races, they are a Triple Crown winner. And we've been fortunate enough to have a couple here in the past decade to witness a Triple Crown winner, so that's pretty cool. But the race takes place in Maryland 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. It's currently takes place at Pimlico Race Course. There's been some talk they're going to move it to Laurel, which is also in Maryland. But for now, as I record this video, it's always took place at Pimlico Race Course 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby in Maryland. And it's the shortest of the three Triple Crown races. Now, some common themes of the Preakness Stakes. In my opinion, it's fairly formful. So what I mean by that is, when somebody only pays attention to horse racing a few times a year, I guarantee the number one race they watch or know about or tune in on TV or go to is the Kentucky Derby. And in some people's minds, that's what horse racing is. But it's not. That's a unique event. It's the signature event. But not all races are composed of 20 horses in the United States. It's pretty much just the Derby. Kentucky Derby is. And so when people watch the chaos that can happen in the Kentucky Derby or just anybody's ball game and all this traffic trouble and trouble trips and all that, they think it's a crapshoot. They think it's, like pulling a slot machine or rolling the dice at a casino. But it's really not. Horse racing, I firmly believe that it's predictable over the long run, and there's a lot of logic to it. And that's what I mean by fairly formful. The Preakness is the shortest of the Triple Crown races. There's not as many horses, and so it's fairly formful, just like most other race days throughout the year. So I'm always hesitant to say the fairly easy to predict because it's still gambling and horse racing. But as you see, of the 144 Preaknesses that have been run, favorites have won 51% of the time. So think about that. If you only bet on the favorites, and that's all the handicapping you did, you have a 51% chance of winning. Now, do favorites win every year? No. But here recently, most horses that win the Preakness are 3-1 odds or less. So they're either the favorite or have odds of less than 3-1. So that means in the pari-mutuel system, we the public and us handicappers and us that bet on horses do a fairly good job of predicting the winner of the Preakness. That's why the odds are so low. Long shots typically don't do that well in the win position. Last one that I can remember is Oxbow, and I remember it because I was lucky enough to have it. It was 2013, I think. I started this YouTube channel and my website in 2014, so I didn't get to document it. But Gary Stevens and Oxbow and trainer D. Wayne Lucas horse, that was a long shot. That's one of the last ones I remember paying pretty well. and I was fortunate to have it. But as a rule, you don't want to get too start booking your plans for the Bahamas or vacation homes or anything like that, or buying an island if by betting on the Preakness, because it probably won't happen, because most of the horses that win the Preakness are short odds. However, keep in mind, you don't want to forget about long shots, because they certainly come in second, third, fourth. So you want to use long shots, as you always want to try to attempt to do, no matter what day you're playing the races, in exactas, trifectas, and superfectas. And old Mr. Baffert, as of 2019, right before I'm recording this, before the 2019 Preakness, Bob Baffert is tied for the most Preakness wins with 7. So keep that in mind. That's another piece of that you might want to keep in mind. Now, as kind of alluded to before, the Preakness is less chaotic than the Kentucky Derby, and it's simply because there are less horses. On average, there's 12 to 14 horses in the Preakness versus 20 in the Kentucky Derby. The less horses you have, the less opportunity there is for traffic trouble, horses bumping into each other, horses cutting each other off. So that's when you have less chaos, it can lend itself to be more logical outcomes based on horses' abilities, their past performances. Now, on the flip side of that, especially in 2019, we all saw what a chaotic Kentucky Derby that was, drama-filled, and there was a lot of trouble, horses about tripping on each other almost, unfortunately, or horses supposedly cutting each other off, and that's called a trouble trip. You do not, so please listen to this, do not rule out horses who have had a trouble trip in the Kentucky Derby. This is a sound, logical, fundamental handicapping angle throughout the year that experienced horse players used all the time. If a horse was in trouble, it stumbled, it got cut off, or ran into traffic problems, you want to keep an eye on that horse and really, with the right odds, bet it the next time that it races. And this is certainly true in the Preakness. And this is very true in the 2019 Preakness, because the 2019 Kentucky Derby was jam-packed with horses having trouble and losing position and didn't get a fair shot down the stretch because of all the bumping and all the interference that they might have encountered as they were racing the Kentucky Derby. So if you watch the replay of the Kentucky Derby, if you kind of pay attention to what horses had a trouble trip in the Kentucky Derby, keep your eye on those horses. Post positions aren't as important as they are in the Kentucky Derby. Anytime you hear a handicapper or a so-called expert handicap the Kentucky Derby, you'll hear the post positions becoming a factor. So it's well known the first post, the one inside, the first post, the second post, historically in the Kentucky Derby, as of late in the modern era, you don't want to be down there, and for good reason. But since there's less horses in the Preakness, post positions aren't as important, and it's pretty fair no matter where you start in the Preakness. So that's not one of the biggest factors to factor in when you're handicapping. Horses to look for. This is just not made up. It's year after year of looking at the results and seeing some trend emerge, kind of like analytics, if you will. Horses, you want to look for horses that have raced in the Kentucky Derby. They are preferred. These horses usually come right back 2 weeks later and perform pretty well, if not win. New shooters, as they're called, those are horses that have raced within 4 weeks of the Preakness, or that's what you want to look for. So new shooters are horses that didn't race in the Kentucky Derby for one reason or the other. They skipped it, or their trainers didn't and their connections didn't feel like they were ready. So they're new shooters. They're new contenders in the Preakness. So they can win. They don't win as often as the horses that were in the Kentucky Derby, because usually those are better horses anyway. That's why they're running in the Kentucky Derby. But the new shooters, if you're going to look for one of those, it would be wise to make sure it's raced within a month of the Preakness. So you don't want to look for horses that hadn't raced in 2 months, 3 months, a year, or something like that. Year might be a little extreme since they're young horses, but you want to look for horses that are in good form. That means they've been racing pretty consistent, they've been working out pretty consistent, and they're not coming off a layoff. So more than a month. You don't want to put too much of your money or try to pick a horse that hadn't raced in a while. So if it's raced within 4 weeks, just like those horses coming from the Kentucky Derby, they've raced 2 weeks ago. Now they're racing in the Preakness. That would be some horses to look for. Horses whose running style is near the lead and likes to sit behind the front runners. This is the typical running style that wins the Preakness. So you might say, oh, that'd be easy. Let's just find the horses they could sit off the lead or up front near the lead. The problem is there's always several horses with that running style. But if you pick the right one with that right running style and have other factors in that horse's favor that allow you to be confident in the bet, then that's a smart decision. That's a smart wager. And more than likely, one of those horses with that running style is going to be the Preakness winner. So near the front of the field is ideal. Closers have a hard time of winning the Preakness. So to sum up Preakness betting and give you the chance of increasing your odds of cashing a ticket of winning the Preakness, you want to strongly consider horses, because this is where the trend is. It's obvious. You can just look up the past performances and the results and the odds of previous Preakness winners, 144 of them. The trend is that short price horses usually win. So if you're a long shot player, if you bet whoever you want, but you're going against a major trend, I never can say that word right, statistical data that is on the contrary. So short price horses, 3-1 or less, would be the way to go if we're talking based on history. The majority of winners have also raced in the Kentucky Derby. So now we got two factors. Horses that are coming from the Kentucky Derby and going off odds 3-1 or less. If you decide to go with horses that didn't race in the Kentucky Derby, doesn't mean you shouldn't use them at all, because they're fresh. They might be ready to run a big race. But they certainly can be used effectively underneath. And again, when we talk about underneath, second position, third position, fourth position, do not be afraid to use long shots just because, historically speaking, they don't win the Preakness at big prices, at big odds, like they might in the Belmont or in the Kentucky Derby or in other races. But they can be used strategically to beef up your prices if a 3-1 or less horse wins or a favorite wins with short odds. You can use those long shots underneath in exactas, trifectas, and superfectas. So don't leave out long shots. Just put them underneath and try to beef up your prices and still make a decent profit on the Preakness, even if the favorite or a 3-1 or less odds horse wins. Running style is key, in my opinion, to the Preakness. So you want to look for horses, again, who like to be on or near the lead. You want to look for horses that are in good form, who have been racing consistently. You don't want a horse without a layoff. Just to recap again, And don't try to get too cute or creative with your bets. I'm somebody that's a creative person, and I'm always trying to get outthink myself and outthink the public and come up with these scenarios. Usually, that's how you make big scores. That's how you, if we all thought the same betting on horses, we're not going to hardly make any money. We might cash, but it won't be that much. And so it usually pays to be contrary and look for angles or little nuggets of information that separates you from the other players out there and the other bettors out there, but not in the Preakness. Don't try to get too cute or creative with your bets. Just sound logical handicapping. Don't be afraid to bet the favorite or a horse that you are very confident in instead of, the Kentucky Derby. You have all these exacta combinations and trifecta combinations and superfecta combinations. It probably will be worth your while in the Preakness to wager more on that horse that you really like, that fit all these other factors, or the combinations, the few combinations that you firmly believe in, you like the most, put more money on it. So instead of going for bombs where the exacta pays $400 or $500 like they often do in the Kentucky Derby, maybe your exacta is only going to pay $20 or $30, or heaven forbid $15. But just put more money on those combinations to make it pay twice than the payout does. So if you paid $20, you would have it 3 times for $60 or 10 times, whatever the case may be. So reduce those combinations, bet confidently on those horses that you firmly believe in, that have a shot, and increase your increments on those combinations and wager more on that horse instead of spreading it around like people tend to do in the Kentucky Derby. And as always, make good decisions. That's what it takes. One of the factors that it takes to be a successful handicapper and a better a wager on horses. It all comes down to making good decisions on who you're going to pick to finish in the win positions, or first, second, or third, or fourth, or however wagers you play. Make good decisions on how you're going to manage your bankroll. It always comes down to decisions. Do you bet this horse or that horse? At what odds are you going to bet this horse or that horse? Make good decisions. Because win or lose, you can look at, you can tell yourself, you can look in the mirror and be like, hey, look, yeah, I might have lost, but I made a good decision. I took a risk, a calculated, educated risk, and I lost. Or you could be like, I made a great decision. This horse was a standout. I knew I wasn't going to get rich off this race, but that horse had the best chance of winning. And so I zeroed most of my investment on that one horse, and my opinion proved to be right. I made a good decision. I didn't try to get too fancy or too creative or cute. I made a good decision, and I profited from it. Sometimes it pays to keep it simple. But this is a Triple Crown race. This is one of horse racing's crown jewels throughout history, as part of our history in the United States. So what I'm trying to get at is just have fun. It's a game. It could be a stressful, frustrating hobby and frustrating game. But it also, win or lose, typically, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun if you're betting with money that you can afford to lose, and it's not your rent money or Social Security money, your child support that's supposed to be helping your kids out. This is a fun, entertaining way to spend your leisure time. So please have fun. Go drink some Black-Eyed Susans. If you haven't never tried one, please do. It's the drink of the Preakness. So drink a few of those. Have fun with your friends. Make a lot of money, or at least make some money. Because, again, you might not get rich betting the Preakness, but if you're a winner, that's a lot of fun, in my book. So I'm the Weekend Handicapper from weekendhandicapper.com. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click that notification button so you can get the latest videos. Check out weekendhandicapper.com. This video was meant to serve as a general tutorial of all Preakness, a general rule on how to bet and beat the Preakness. Stay tuned, because every year I will give you my opinion, my analysis of each year's Preakness. So you want to make sure you subscribe and click that notification button for the Preakness analysis every year. But I wanted this one to be a general overall way to give you some tips and strategies where you could be not driving blind going into the Preakness. You will have some fundamentals and proven data and trends that have been shown to win the Preakness and to be successful at the Preakness. So until next time, happy handicapping and smart wagering, and good luck betting the Preakness Stakes.